I don't know what it is. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Formula America podcast. We're your hosts, Kurt and Dylan. And before we start, I just want to apologize if you didn't listen to the last episode. I know we're a couple days late here, but I went to a friend's wedding out of the country, so I was gone. I just got back. Might still be a little jet lagged, but I thought I was actually safe this weekend because it's the Spanish Grand Prix, which I figured if I'm going to leave town for any weekend and not watch the race live, probably this would be a good race. Man, was I wrong. This race was incredible. I kept getting texts from people like, did you see what just happened? I'm like, no, I'm in another country. Leave me alone.
Stop talking to me. Yeah.
Man, what a wild weekend.
It was crazy the entire way through. Like, there was a couple of times where I was like, this is probably where the race gets boring. And then it just didn't. Like, things kept happening. It was like, God, dog, this has been jam-packed.
I think, if anything, watching this race really highlights the fact that multiple pit stops makes everything so much more exciting, because then you got, instead of just everybody doing a one-stop strategy or a two-stop, we had some cars doing three, we had some cars doing two. Like, it just brings so much more complexity, I think, into the race. And then you're trying to calculate who is on what stop, so they're kind of out of place now, but what's their net position? It lends to the excitement. I really enjoy these multiple stop races.
I did too. I think it did awesome, and the tire strategy was all over the place. I mean, George Russell going on the hards, and 5 laps later, Lewis coming in and going on the softs. Like, what a difference that makes. Like,
yeah,
it was anybody's game. I believe it was Sergio did soft, medium, and it was like, man, why is he doing that? Like, the whole thing was kind of like, I kept doing, what net position is everyone in? And then you see Sergio down there in like 14th, and you're like, is that his real position, or is that his, like, is he out of place? Right? He might not be out of place. Like, where, I don't even know where everybody is.
I love it because it really, it brings in the extra element, or it really shows the importance of the strategist for each team. And they really are working overtime on a race like this. And so it was awesome. That's why I like having people like Ruth Boscombe or whatever her name is, like, doing commentary, because you get to hear their side of it too. It was so much fun. But man, I think we got to start with some of the highlights of this weekend. And I don't think we could start without talking about my boy Lando. This guy, from the beginning, you could tell he was quick. He was actually top 3 in every session all the way through. FP1 all the way through the race, he was in the top 3. So you could tell basically from the jump that Lando was going to be quick. But man, to see when he took pole for the second time ever, like, you figure like, oh, he always gets close, but Max always pulls it out. And then there he was right there at the end, just barely taking it from Max. Man, that was exciting.
It was super exciting. I think Toto Wolff released a statement kind of talking about, the Red Bull isn't as fast as it was last year. Max is just that good. And that's kind of how I'm sitting there, like, this whole weekend. I was like, is Mercedes faster than Ferrari? Where is everybody? And I'm like, this McLaren might be faster than the Red Bull, but you're just fighting. I'll say it, probably one of the greatest drivers ever. He's going to be up there in the list. Like, and that's hard, but I think that McLaren is fast.
Yeah, and like you said, we got to see this weekend, like, that Mercedes came to play. Like, that W15 has finally found its form, and we'll see, coming up to the Red Bull Ring and then Silverstone, if it's able to continue over those tracks. But that car was probably, I would say this weekend, the McLaren was the fastest. I would put Red Bull and Mercedes pretty damn close, with a Ferrari, behind them.
I think Red Bull is faster than Mercedes still. They weren't closing that gap down. I mean, Lewis was 17.7 seconds off of Lando at the end of the race. And George was 5 seconds behind Lewis. I don't think that it was necessarily faster than the Red Bull, but we're getting to that point of it's competition. Like, and Mercedes was playing the strategy game, which I was thinking about. We were talking, how are we going to do this podcast? Talk about some of the highlights. Mercedes is a huge highlight to me. I felt like we were watching kind of the Mercedes of old. They were working together. They were driving hard. People were reacting to their strategies. I mean, you remember the 2021 season, Mercedes ran the strategy and everybody just reacted to it. And it wasn't at that level at this race, but you saw that glimmer of, like, this is the Mercedes a lot of us really remember, and it's about to start getting interesting.
Yeah, that's one thing that I actually noticed yesterday is whenever those two Mercedes cars get together, they're a force to be reckoned with because they play that strategy game together very well. And I want to say was it Singapore last year? I think it was where they both pitted a double stack or a double stack, and then they're just flying through before George Russell went off and did what he normally does. But when you get both of those cars coming through as a team, watch out because it's a force to be reckoned with.
I saw someone did a clip the other day of Lewis Hamilton 2021 at Brazil when he went from 20th to 1st.
Yep.
And someone just did an awesome clip where it just started with, all right, Lewis, hammer time. And then just him moving through the pack. And it was like giving me chills. I was like, that is like the Lewis Hamilton I want to love. Like, how do we get more of that? Like,
we haven't heard Bono say hammer time in a while.
I think haven't.
It's been since probably 2021 or so.
Yeah. So that was I really enjoyed watching Mercedes. They were clearly faster than the Ferraris, which I wonder if Lewis is like, son of a bitch.
No, I think it's too soon for that.
But I really enjoyed Merc this weekend.
Man, all right. On that, how about George Russell? Out of nowhere, I was watching from my phone at a little cafe on the street. I just wanted to see the beginning of the race. I thought it was Lewis Hamilton, and they're like, George Russell. I was like, he was in P4 on the inside. Next thing I know, he's on the outside of turn one. Essentially, essentially going through, got a double slipstream and just Jesus take the wheel and just let it go and stuck that car around the outside.
Osama bin Russell actually made the turn.
I heard somebody kind of compare it to Checo Perez in Mexico last year when he essentially tried to do the same thing and ruined his race or ended his race.
So well.
Yeah, it didn't work out. But man, how did that happen? That to me, like he came out of nowhere. And I think, Lando, I love him. I think he's coming into his prime.
Inexperienced.
He's got that one little weakness, and it comes with anytime he starts the race in the front, I feel like he has an issue. But what I did like was the way that, I think he's learned from a lot of other people when they take pole and Max Verstappen just bullies his way through. He's like, you have to get aggressive with Max on the start. And Lando did. Like, he put him off into the grass at one point.
Which afterwards in the cool down room, Max was laughing about it at the post-race interview. Lando was like, he had plenty of room, and Max was dying laughing over there. I think he loved every second of it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And then, Max just, again, he just did what he always does and just had that little bit extra lateness on the brakes and was able to get through into P2 and, eventually took it from George. But I do feel that we saw a maturity, a maturation from both Lando and George this weekend.
Yep.
And so, like, we saw George, he was put under pressure a lot, and he didn't make mistakes like he normally does. Like we'll see him lock up and go wide or deep into a turn or something like that, and he held it together. And so I think that's what he needs to do to fully cement his position as that team leader next year.
I totally agree. They are definitely, like, just going back a little bit to talk about Lando, like, I really do enjoy watching Lando do so well, but you can tell he's not used to it. And the biggest thing I can think about is, I don't remember which race it was, where there's a safety car and he was in first place and he had to do the restart, at his own. Yeah. And you can just tell he's not done that many times, not in Formula One. I'm sure he's done it in the lower tiers. It's been a number of years since then, like just a little bit of inexperience of being in that position compared to watching Max, who has done it 100 times at this point. He knows how he's going to do it. And it's like, it's fun kind of watching Lando start to catch up and get to have those experiences, but he's definitely not as smooth as some of the others.
Yeah, it's funny because all these people that came up together, George, Max, Alex Albon, Lando, Leclerc, it's like once they got to Formula One, Max Verstappen has kind of robbed them of all these opportunities to gain that experience. And now that they're starting to get it, you get to see that, they don't have that experience. They don't have the technique like he has. But I think with Lando, man, that's the final piece.
Yes.
Once he figures that out, you'll see Lando in his final form. And I seriously think that by the end of this season, we're going to see Lando at the top, probably more often than not, if it keeps going the way things are going, because, man, that McLaren is looking so good.
It is. And I think it's going to keep getting better. And I'm excited for that. That Mercedes is looking good too. I said it last year as well. Don't ever bet about out developing Mercedes. And I think that they finally got a concept down that they can build on, and that's dangerous.
It just took them a while.
Took them a little bit.
I think what happened is for so long they wouldn't stick with anything, and they finally stuck with this one long enough to actually start to see it through and see some improvements. But yeah, man, that Mercedes, it's looking good. You got Toto sitting there like Darth Vader every time they show him, and they're getting up there now. Lewis, especially heading into this weekend, there's a lot of talk from Lewis's interview last week saying that he doesn't expect to out qualify George anymore, because essentially alluding that the team is starting to tailor the car behind George and his style and his desires, because he will be there next year. Lewis won't. Makes sense. And then we've got the insider email that came out saying essentially that the team was sabotaging Lewis, which I don't necessarily see that, but all the conspiracy theorists are going to be like, oh, they were, but they saw the email, so they switched it around on them this weekend.
Yeah, I saw the same thing, and that's the fact that Toto is still one of Lewis's good friends. Like, I don't think that's not an email Toto is going to take lightly. And I mean, he already said they got police investigations involved. Like, he didn't go for an independent investigation. He went for police. Like, so I don't really hold any weight on that.
No, not at all. Not at all. But man, yeah, I think it's so exciting watching now. I hear the commentators keep talking about the convergence of the cars, and we see it at that top. Not so much on a lot of those cars down lower below the Ferraris.
Before we get to them, let's talk about the drama at Ferrari this weekend.
Oh my God. You're talking about the potential beginning of the breakup between Leclerc and Sainz?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. First of all, Sainz was a giant baby on the radio, aggravatingly so. Like,
it was bad. Like, talking about, oh, why do we have the rule book and he needs a penalty, and then coming back and getting the status. Like, just drive your race. Talking crap about Leclerc. I don't know, man. Looking back at the one with him and Leclerc, I only saw the replay once. I'm going to say I think Carlos Sainz had played a large part in that.
Yeah.
I know he said he thought he was in front, but I think that especially on your teammate, you have to leave a little more room.
It's racing. Stop trying to get the stewards to do the racing for you. Like,
yeah,
don't worry about who had the apex. Y'all were wheel to wheel. Like, go racing. It's fine.
Yeah. Do that next year though. Don't do that on your teammate.
Yeah.
Leave a little bit more space.
But stop complaining. Like,
yeah. But I think
sound like George Russell over there.
Nobody wants to sound like George Russell. But yeah, man, Ferrari this weekend, aside from the drama between the drivers, Ferrari, it just didn't seem, it seems like the past couple weekends, they've kind of reverted to the Ferrari of a couple years ago, where it's like the strategy calls are kind of weird. You got Charles Leclerc coming over like, hey, why are we still on plan A? And then the engineer's like, well, everybody else is doing it, so we're doing it. Yeah, like, I'm surprised you didn't hear that one. It's just like Ferrari, I don't know. I feel like they've kind of lost a little bit of their mojo in the past couple races. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but they need to get a handle on that.
I think the problem is they're realizing that, wow, we're now, instead of the second fastest, McLaren just took us in the constructors. Like, we're sliding backwards. Mercedes was a little bit fat. Like, we're getting outdeveloped right now. So I think that there's some stress being put on them to get their shit together.
Yeah, there is. And like you said, Lewis is looming, and I don't think he's getting worried. Not yet. I don't think he's going to get worried, actually. I think he'll be happy. But
yeah,
Ferrari's probably also looking at the hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that this deal is going to cost, and how they're getting rid of one of their better drivers right now.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the aggression coming from him is probably due to that.
I mean, he was in the pre-race interviews. They were talking with Carlos about that, and he was like, I have to make a decision soon. I can't keep this looming over my head. And then I saw they were interviewing a group of people of drivers on the couches, and asked K-Mag what his plans were. And he straight up said, everyone's waiting on Carlos. Like, when Carlos makes a decision, the rest of the dominoes will fall, but that's what everybody's waiting on. He's like, just being honest. And it was like, that's what we all kind of assumed, but it was interesting hearing a driver say, we are all waiting on him. He needs to make a decision.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah. I think, honestly, it's going to come down to either a lot of money from a team that's nowhere, meaning stake, or a little bit less money from a team that's also nowhere, but might have some
Alpine?
potential and has some lineage. Oh, I don't know about the Alpine one. That's I don't know. That's if you're Carlos right now, you're in a tough spot.
You're in a
You got a
really
string-
tough spot.
You have a string of bad or a bunch of bad choices to choose from.
I might look at offing Danny Ricciardo in the back room somewhere and taking that seat if I were him.
Yeah, I don't know, man. All right, so from those guys, let's talk about some of the guys at the back of the pack this weekend because there was, oh my God, Williams is not doing well right now.
No.
That and you could tell like the drivers, well, the one driver is not happy. Alex Albon, you saw that one where he kind of went off or almost went off, and he's like, "Hey, what was that?" And then I like how the engineer is like, "Oh, nothing's wrong," and he's like, "Look, don't just come back to me and tell me nothing's wrong. Like
Something
I felt
just
it.
happened.
There's something wrong." And then I feel like,
really? Are you sitting in this seat? Can you feel what I'm feeling? Everything's fine. Okay.
I don't care what your numbers on the computer say, buddy. I'll tell you what my ass felt, and something's going on back here. And then I feel like Logan Sargent is just on his Formula One farewell tour, just driving around, just doesn't care, knows he's not going to get anywhere. He's not going to better his position. So
yeah, he's got to go.
Yeah, and I feel for him because there's nothing positive. No positive anything or press comes out about him. You got David Coulthard doing do you see the interview about the parking lot?
I was the one that sent that to you.
Yeah.
Let's see whose Mercedes powered car is sitting here already against the pole. Oh yeah, that's right. It's Logan Sargent's.
All right. So if you haven't seen the video, somebody parked their car driving to the race and actually hit the pole in front of the parking spot. And to be fair, there's a photographer named Kim Illman who has been a longtime Formula One photographer. He's got a great YouTube channel. You see a lot of behind the scenes. And he said that he looked into it, and actually Logan was driving the black one where Alex was driving the white one.
So Albon's car?
He was saying that it was Albon's car and that it was kind of unfair for DC to say that.
Yeah, but DC's funny like that.
Yeah, DC don't give a damn.
My favorite by far was in Miami when the Alpine was on like an outer end lap and it just trundled on by, and he looks over out of the commentator box and goes, "Oh, look, there's an Alpine at full tilt right there." You're like, "Damn, bro."
That's why I always get excited when I turn on and I hear that DC's commentating.
Yes. Let's talk about Racing Bulls and their giant upgrade package that was like Haas and Austin last year.
Yeah. I was actually thinking about that. I think teams need to stop calling them upgrades. They should just call them revisions or experiments.
Yeah.
Right? Until it's proven. Because the term upgrade makes you automatically think that it's going to be better or faster. And we saw a couple cars that has not been the case. No. V-Carb is one of them.
Yeah, that was a weekend to forget for V.
You got what? You got Danny qualifying P18. You got Yuki P17, and then you got Danny out qualifying Yuki. Danny was what, P15, I think, in the race,
and then
P15
Yuki was 19th.
So I mean,
oof.
The only benefit you could see for V-Carb from this weekend is a potential confidence boost for Danny Rick. Just not getting completely outperformed. But I mean, that's the only positive light you could pull from this whole thing, because that car was just absolutely miserable this weekend.
It was terrible. All right, let's get to the heroes and zeros. I think we're going to hit the rest of the commentary from them.
Okay. How about, I think you started with the zeros last time, so I'll start with the zeros this week. My zero, my first one I'm going to go with is Ferrari, man.
The fair one.
You know, they just don't have the pace right now. The strategy calls, Carlos Sainz radio, you know, like you said, it was annoying. And then, you know, the issue between him and Leclerc. And then you got to see at the end that like that little confrontation that they had with one another too. And it's like, you got to kind of be a little bit more mindful of the optics. Like maybe do that behind the scenes. I know there's cameras everywhere, but try to find, like, you know, do it somewhere else. Don't do it right there. My next one, I'm going to do it again. Stake, still scoreless. Zhou Guan Yu, from what I'm reading, has actually kind of got reverted a bit and has a amalgamation of an old chassis now with some of the newer upgrade parts because he wasn't happy with the new chassis and is doing slightly better because of that, but they're just nowhere. Still. The way I like to think of it is Stake right now is kind of in a flat spin.
It's kind of like Ferrari 2020, 2021, when they're like, we jacked up, the next couple of years are going to suck and we're going to just, get through them. And it's just like,
yeah, it's not looking good. So I think Stake is in a flat spin, and the only one that was worse was Williams, which is in an absolute kamikaze nosedive right now. Yep. And those guys, like we said, just issues with the car. Alex isn't happy. Logan is just existing. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. So those three, I got 3 teams this week: Stake, Ferrari, and Williams.
I'm so excited. We have completely different zeros.
I can't wait to hear. There was a lot to choose from.
There's a lot to choose from. And first off, I'm going to start with Checo Perez.
Oh my God. Yep.
8th place. 8th place. Checo, but you were battling with Alpine.
That was a highlight for Alpine too.
That was a highlight for Alpine. It was absolutely a highlight for Alpine. Checo, you look like an idiot. Like,
do you think that Red Bull and Christian Horner is having a little bit of buyer's remorse right now?
If McLaren gets their shit together, they are 50 points behind Red Bull right now. It takes a couple of races to close that gap down significantly. Max Verstappen in the last 3 races has scored 88 points. Checo has scored 8.
He's had last 4 races. He's had 2 DNFs. Yep.
8 points.
Ooh.
So yeah, Checo Perez first and foremost. I'm gonna hit up VCarb. Upgrade experiment failed. Moving on. And finally, man, I'm gonna poke the bear a little bit, but Aston Martin, they are just sliding backwards. I'll go ahead and one of my heroes is going to be Alpine. They got a double points finish. We'll talk more about that, but whooping Aston Martin's butt this weekend. I mean, it wasn't even a fair fight. They blew by Aston. Like good on Alpine, but wow, Aston, you've now been overtaken on merit by Alpine.
And Aston was one of the teams that brought quote unquote upgrades this weekend too. So
yeah,
not looking good. Alonso said the car is getting worse at one point, and it's true. We all see it.
Yeah, we do. So that's my other one.
Okay, so that was your 3?
Yep.
All right, so lead us off with your heroes.
I've already been toting their horn. Mercedes, great weekend for them. It's fun to see them back. I said Alpine already. Double points finish. Overall, a very clean, good weekend for them. They secured 9th and 10th. They were battling with Red Bull. Good on Alpine. Kind of turning it around a little bit. And I got McLaren, man. You might be faster on merit than the Red Bulls at this point. Lando was running Max down at the end.
Yes.
I don't think he was going to get by Max, but he was closing that gap down. And I think Max was managing his tires and wasn't too worried about it, but that McLaren is fast. Oscar Piastri did good. He got hosed a little bit in quali by going off track both times and ending up in 10th. But I've got to give it to McLaren.
Yeah, Oscar took, I don't remember exactly. I want to say it was like 12 seconds or something like that out of Carlos in the last handful of laps. And so he's definitely coming up. So yeah, I will say that my first hero, I'm going to go with Lando. Not going to go with McLaren as a team because they screwed up the pit stop. They had a 3.6 second pit stop, which is essentially a second and a half longer than they needed. And that second and a half could have made a huge difference come the end of the race.
It could have.
Also, did you see that their hospitality center caught on fire over the weekend?
I missed that.
So that was another I saw on Kim Illman's video. Everybody had to be evacuated from it. The fire department had to come. There was an electrical fire in their hospitality center.
Way
to go. And this is before, I think even before quali. So they were fighting that. And then Oscar, though, yeah, like you said, he kind of had some issues in quali, but he's looking good too, man. He had some good pace, great passing. But I'm going to go with just Lando on my hero right there. Right. And then my other one, kind of online with you, but I'm going to split them up because I think they both deserve their own accolade. I'm going to go with Lewis Hamilton. He has outqualified George Russell this weekend, outperformed George Russell, got his 198th podium. beat the record of 197 podiums, which
Previously
was also
held
his
by
record.
him,
And next time he's going to beat a record again and again. But it was so good to see Lewis back on the podium. It's Lewis we talk about before, like his hero arc. It's like a W, you know, same thing Vettel went through, then he went through it. It's like you love to see him do well, but then they do too well, and then you want to see him do bad, but then you want to see him do good again. And Max is definitely in his villain side where people want to see somebody else win. But man, I don't know. I think most people at this point want to see Lewis do well.
It's hard not to.
Yeah.
I love watching him race. When he's feeling good, he is so fun to watch race. The way he throws that nose in, like, I love it. The same thing with like Fernando Alonso, that old school racing style is just awesome to watch.
And those two together, some of the best battles when they're on like equal machinery. All right. And then my next one, I'm going to go with George Russell, man. I don't know. I think I did. I gave it to him once before this season so far.
Yeah.
But just hard, clean racing. You got to see that, oh my gosh, the half lap between him and Lando where they were just going back and forth.
Wheel to wheel.
Probably one of the best. Yeah, one of the best battles of the season, I think.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that comes down to that they've been racing each other for so long. They have that mutual respect. They also kind of know each other's, styles and whatnot. No. But man, how entertaining was that? Just when you think it's over.
You kept thinking it was going to end, and all of a sudden they come around the turn and they're both still side by side. You're like, holy crap.
Just blow for blow. That was awesome to see. And he kept it together under pressure.
He did.
So, like I was saying, he's good. He's supposed to be the team leader next year. And I think he needs to make this change to show that he's not only the team leader just in seniority, but also in racecraft and skill. Yep. So I think if he continues on this path, he'll get there. So yeah, those are going to be my three: Lando, Lewis, and George.
Love it. All right, let's get to these predictions. Let me pull up our score sheet. And we're currently, for 2 weeks or 2 races in a row, still sitting at 22-15. I think that's going to change this time, but we shall see.
All right.
On pole, I had Max Verstappen.
On pole, I too had Max Verstappen.
The correct answer was Lando.
We missed it by what, 0.02 of a second or something?
Holy
like that?
Shit, Kurt. You know what I just realized?
What?
I got the entire podium.
Did you really?
I did.
Oh, you bastard.
P3, Lewis Hamilton. Got it.
I have Charles Leclerc on P3.
Ooh, he was in 5th place, Kurt. 5th place.
Oh,
P2, Lando Norris. Got it.
I had Lando on P2.
Nice.
My one victory.
P1, Max Verstappen.
Jesus, I had Lewis Hamilton in P1.
Oh, I think I've extended my lead.
Oh, you have, man. What was your wild card this week?
I had Perez wasn't going to make it to Q3, which I believe he did.
He did. He was P8, I believe, in quali.
Yeah, he was.
My wild card was that, oh, Jesus, I had a double points for V-Carb.
Yeah, that was a big swing and a miss. I think you lose points on that.
Jesus. Every time I put them in my wild card, I
So
lose.
you got 1 point?
And you got what, 4 points?
3. I got 3 points. 25-16. I extend my lead to 9-point lead.
Oh, man. You're extending that lead. All right. So quick update. We've got still Max and P1 in the drivers. Lando Norris has now taken over for P2 in the drivers championship, which is amazing. Took that from, where am I at here? Drivers. There we go. Took that from Charles Leclerc, he's beaten now by 2 points. And let's see, constructors, we still got Red Bull, then Ferrari, and McLaren is only 33 points behind Ferrari right now.
They're closing that gap.
Ooh, there we go. All right, so obviously we're a little late on this one, so we will be back in literally a day, I think, with our Austrian GP prediction pod. We're going to the Red Bull Ring, which is going to be a good race, I think.
It's a quick little track. I think that one's going to be interesting for sure. It's going to be some good racing.
Yeah, I'm pumped for that one. All right, guys. So check us out on Patreon. We got a new Patreon. It's patreon.com/Formula America. And other than that, I think that might be it, Dylan. You got anything else?
That's all I got, Kurt.
All right. Well, on that note,
stay classy, America.
We'll see you next time.